Today, the story of Dr. Kylehill. 2 major car accidents, 1 broken neck, an angel literally wearing a halo while studying for the MCAT. Hear her story of pain management as well as her experience teaching in Korea. Keep listening to join this great discussion. And now, part 1 of It's the Whole Plant for Me, Dr. Kylehill. Doc, holla at your boy, man. Tell me what's going on right now in the present so we can celebrate, and then let's get down to this thing. What's going on with you?
Well, thank you, Pastor Johnny, for having me on. I appreciate this. I'm excited about our conversation. So I guess the good news is I just got my degree. It was a long time coming, but it's here.
Well, give us the specific title. Give it to us.
So it's medical doctorate. I got my medical doctorate. It's been about 6+ years in the making. I had some kind of breaks here and there and a bunch of life things that happened, but God carried me to the end of it, and I still have to reapply for residency. This year was hard because of COVID, but the school part's done and that feels great.
Yes. Now you talked about persevering through. Describe this perseverance for us. This is a medical doctor. Like, what is this journey like?
Well, so it starts off in undergrad. So in undergrad, I went to Trinity University in San Antonio, which is a liberal arts school. Pretty difficult, as far as standards are concerned. But I started pre-med. So you have to take your biology, your chemistry, organic, inorganic. You got to take your physics. All these pretty tough science courses. And I would say that's kind of when I was like, whoa, medicine, this is going to be tricky. This is not going to be a walk in the park. So that was kind of my first, preview to kind of how difficult it was going to be. And actually, I know we briefly spoke, I did have my first car accident, which was my freshman year. And in that car accident, it was mostly head trauma. I broke a couple of ribs and lacerated my liver, but I was only in the hospital for a week. But because of my time out, my school was saying, well, maybe you should take a semester off. And I just couldn't. I couldn't because the speed of how things were going with the courses. I mean, if you miss a couple of days, you're kind of drowning with it. So yeah, you do 4 years of undergrad, you do your pre-med courses, and then you take what's called an MCAT, which is kind of like your entrance exam to medical school. And then hopefully you get into medical school. Well, I finished all my prerequisites. I was actually studying for my MCAT, and that's when I got into my second car accident. I know in that car accident, I actually unfortunately broke both bones in my neck, C1 and C2 on either side, which the physician actually called an internal decapitation. I'll let you kind of think about that. And so that was the major one, but I also fractured my right leg, like pretty much off. I had pins and screws to hold that on. I broke ribs again. I actually had a lot of internal bleeding. I smashed my pelvis, broke my collarbone. So I was in the hospital for like 3 months, something around that. And then in a inpatient rehabilitation center, just kind of learning how to stand and use my wheelchair. And that was right before my MCAT. And then, so it's been a course, and then when you get into pain management, after all the accident, the things kind of healed, I was left with all kind of pain because my fracture was so high up in my neck. It left me with, I had like arthritic pain, but also neuropathic pain. So like lightning bolts throughout my body pretty much. So overcoming, learning how to kind of navigate through pain management. And I think those things is actually really what gives me the passion to want to do medicine. I think that's what kind of carried me along through this long course of schooling. But after that, I actually went to Korea for 2 years and I taught English and science because after the whole hospital pain management, I decided maybe I don't want to do medicine. So I stopped studying for the MCAT and I was like, I got to do something else.
I was going to ask you because what's very interesting about that is that right in the middle of you preparing to take the biggest leg of the journey, here you have these two major accidents, and in that time, you're dealing with a lot of medical professionals. I was going to ask you, was there a medical professional during that time that inspired you? But I'm going to ask you also, was there a medical professional at that time that kind of, I want to say, discouraged you or made you say, you know what, maybe I don't want to go in this direction? Or was it just the entire experience as a whole that said, you know what, maybe this environment is not going to be the most conducive to me?
That's not a question, because it really was. When I was going through the pain management, the numerous physicians and medical, it actually kind of turned me off to medicine, because I was just kind of like a patient on paper, like just boxes you had to check. And unfortunately, going into America's healthcare system is a whole nother conversation. But I also was inspired by a physician that actually encouraged me to go back. That happened in Korea, though. So,
not the good old U.S.
I had a Korean physician that was awesome, and I was actually just tutoring him in conversational English. So we would like chop up like an article or something like that, and I would help him with his English and how to conversate with medical terminology. And so he was giving me all these things I should do for my pain. I mean, I tried everything from bee venom to acupuncture to massage therapy, stretching, and herbal remedies. And so I learned that there were other things that I could do, to kind of manage my pain other than taking opioid-based medications. And so through our conversations actually in Korea, he was the one that inspired me. So I actually applied, and then, from Korea, went to medical school in Curacao.
I was, this is my personal testimony. I was 18. I was getting ready to go to college, and they required you to get your shots before you went. And so I was missing a shot, and I went to the doctor to get my shot. She gives me the shot in my buttocks, and my leg went numb. So I couldn't feel my leg. I don't know why, but I fell literally in my mother's lap, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And then the nurse says, oh, he's gonna die. I'm thinking, really? Like, I'm gonna die? She takes off and grabs the doctor. By the time he's back in there, I'm crying. And my mother is screaming for the doctor. And by that time, the feeling came back. And I was sitting there, and he got me up, and I sat down. And to this day, I've been afraid of needles. But those type of things can happen that ruin someone's experience, just the mental piece of it. So what was it like for you to meet someone overseas that restored that love and passion for medicine?
It was awesome. And to be honest, I kind of put it out of my mind. It just like I didn't consider it anymore, because I was that much turned off about what kind of had happened to me as a patient. I had other friends who had bad experiences, and then just kind of the idea of healthcare here in America and those that can't get it. So it was awesome just to have a physician listen to me and listen to my concerns and problems and my experiences with opioid-based medicine, and kind of how it diminished my cognitive function and ability. I felt like when I kind of went with physicians here about that, they were just like, well, do you want pain relief or not? There were no other options really provided, and maybe I didn't know how to ask for them either, because I didn't have that knowledge.
Yeah, well, we don't know what to ask for unless we know that it's available. They put a list of what's available in front of you, and that's the only thing you know to ask for. And so is that what has championed this journey that you've been on, where it's like, you know what, I do know that there are alternatives, and because our God is such a great God and everything he created on this earth is good, I'm gonna find this good thing that helps people. So tell us how you got on this specific leg of the journey now that you found hope and encouragement in being in the medical field again.
Yeah, and I'm really loving it where I am. I actually got introduced into endocannabinoid sciences, which is basically so cannabinoid we know is the constituents of the cannabis plant. So you got phytocannabinoids that come from the plant, and then endocannabinoids is actually molecules that your body actually makes that works on those same receptors. So I had an uncle that was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and he was kind of asking me some things about it. He had read some things. I also have an aunt with lupus. So I was, at the time, actually, right around the same time when I was in Korea, I was doing a lot of research around the cannabis plant and these different compounds and how they were reacting in the body. And I was kind of sold on it. I was, science, I can be convinced with science. If I see data, in science. So I started opening my mind up to some of these ideas. And before you know it, I was back in Houston. I was advocating for mothers who had children with epilepsy, Dravet syndrome, severe autism. I was also doing research at MD Anderson with a biotech startup looking at the effects of CBD, which is another constituent of the cannabis plant, for refractory lymphoma cells. So these were lymphoma cells that maybe chemotherapy was unable to kill on its own, but in conjunction with CBD, all those cells were dying off at a very low concentration of CBD, actually. And so that just kind of fueled my passion. And I kind of used that in my chronic pain experience and kind of put the two together and started to further the research into specific cannabinoids for chronic pain, also bringing in this idea of mindfulness. So now where I am is I'm an aspiring physical medicine and rehabilitation resident. So I would like to get a residency in PM&R and do something alongside of like comprehensive spine, things with neurological disorders, neck, back, any kind of pain syndromes that go along with that, and really integrate, some of these other options that I've learned for myself. Including, different cannabinoids, mindfulness. There's a plethora of different herbs you can use for different things, reduction in cortisol. I feel like there's so many little pieces to this chronic pain paradigm that I'm passionate about. And so that's where I am now.
What is it like? What is it like as a doctor when you are treating a patient and you see that frustration, you see that fear, you see that concern in their eye, like this is it. I always be in this pain. I always have this tremor. I always have these headaches. And for you to be able to work with them to find something that is able to help or offer them a treatment that is able to help. And then you see that first glimmer of hope. Like, what is that like? And take us from the start of when you first see that patient, and then when you see that first breakthrough, what is that like for you?
Well, I'll tell you, Pastor Johnny, just even giving them options and letting them know that there's hope. I mean, and this is before, even we've tried anything or know that it works. I think patients just want to be heard. They want to be provided options, and they want to know that they have somebody that they can rely on to kind of help them go through this process. And just with like simple recommendations, you tell people, that if have chronic headaches, you kind of just start, well, what does your water status look like? How much water are you drinking? And sometimes patients don't even consider that to be a reason for their headaches. And then when they start increasing their hydration and they notice, they come up, how much water did you drink this week? How much water did you drink last week? Are you seeing any improvements in your headaches? And when they, say, I never thought about it, but now that I've been drinking more water, and it could be something so simple, and that feels amazing just to know that you can help and provide options and hope and provide patients with, the listening ear to kind of get them through what they're going through.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of It's the Whole Plant for Me with Dr. Kylehill. If you have questions about the cannabis plant or about the CBD products, we'd love for you to be a part of this great discussion. Use the hashtag JDO3 podcast or Dr. Kyle, K-Y-L-E, Hill, to join this discussion. I would love for you to participate in any of the discussions that we have on this podcast. Send me a message. My email address is pastorjohnny@firstmet.org.